Imagine, if you will, spending like 5 entire years reading the manual for a bicycle.
Oh, wow.
5 years.
Yeah, literally 5 years. You just sit in your living room and you memorize every single diagram.
Right.
You study the physics of the gear ratios. You calculate the exact tension required for the brake cables.
You probably even research like the chemical composition of the rubber on the tires.
Exactly. You are, on paper, the world's foremost theoretical expert on how this specific bicycle operates.
Sure.
But, and here's the catch, you have never actually taken it outside, put your feet on the pedals, and tried to ride the thing down the street.
Which is about, I mean, that's kind of the point of a bike.
Right. And that gap, that incredibly frustrating, basically paralyzing gap between knowing exactly how something works in theory and actually being able to use it in the real world, that is exactly what we are getting into today.
It's such a universal feeling, too.
It really is. So welcome to your custom-tailored deep dive. Today we are analyzing an excerpt from a book called The Victory of Simple Speech, Mastering Daily English, which is a great read, by the way.
It is. And it features this very relatable story from the Easy English podcast about a learner named Sophia.
Yeah, Sophia's story is it's something I think a lot of people are going to resonate with.
Definitely. So our mission today is to figure out why the pursuit of perfection so often paralyzes us and, more importantly, the psychological mechanics of how we can actually break free from it.
Right, because it's not just about trying harder.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this, because Sophia's story might be specifically about learning a language, but the underlying mechanisms apply to almost any skill we try to master.
They really do. I mean, this deep dive is essentially a blueprint for mastering any practical skill where, the fear of judgment holds us back.
Whether you're learning to code
or trying to become a more effective public speaker or stepping into a new management role at work, the architecture of that hesitation is identical.
It's all the same underlying fear.
Yeah. We are looking at the psychology of performance anxiety and the very deliberate structural steps required to dismantle it because, well, Sophia is putting in a massive amount of effort.
Oh, totally.
But she is directing it at the wrong cognitive systems.
Right. Let's look at that effort because her daily routine sounds honestly exhausting.
It's intense.
She is doing everything we are traditionally taught to do in an academic setting. She studies grammar rules religiously.
Yep.
She drills new vocabulary flashcards every single day.
Just constantly feeding her brain information.
Right. And she's consuming hours of English tutorial videos online. I mean, if you handed her a multiple choice test on the mechanics of the English language, she would undoubtedly ace it.
Oh, 100%.
She has filled her brain with an enormous database of information. But then she steps out of her front door.
And that's where it all falls apart.
Completely. The reality of her daily life is this stark, almost painful contrast to her study habits. When she goes into a cafe, she doesn't even order out loud.
Wait, really? She just doesn't speak?
Nope. She just points silently at the menu. And in retail stores, she actively avoids making eye contact so she won't have to speak to the employees.
It sounds incredibly stressful.
It is. And at work, her internal monologue is entirely hijacked by anxiety. She's just looping through fears like, what if people don't understand me? Or, what if my accent sounds strange?
Which just drains all your mental energy.
Exactly. And this is where I always find myself getting stuck because it feels like a total paradox.
How so?
Well, I want to push back on this a little bit, or at least ask the question, why does having more information actually seem to make her more nervous?
Ah, that's the million-dollar question.
Right, because in almost any other area of life, we operate under the assumption that knowledge equals confidence. Like, if I read 10 books on how to fix a plumbing leak...
You're going to feel pretty good about fixing that pipe.
Exactly. I am going to feel way more confident walking into my bathroom with a wrench than if I had read 0 books. So why does her mountain of vocabulary completely evaporate the second she makes eye contact with a barista?
Well, what's fascinating here is the distinction between declarative memory and procedural memory.
Okay, declarative and procedural. Break that down for me.
Sure. So Sophia is treating a functional, real-world tool exactly like a standardized academic test. And those require 2 entirely different neural pathways.
Different pathways in the brain.
Exactly. Let's look at your plumbing analogy. Reading 10 books gives you declarative knowledge. You can state facts about pipes. You can name the tool.
Right, I know what a wrench is.
But if you stand in front of a bursting pipe that is actively spraying water in your face...
Oh, God, yeah. Panic mode.
Right. And your brain tries to flip through chapter 4 of a textbook to figure out which wrench to use, your bathroom is going to flood.
Because I don't have time to read chapter 4 in my head.
Exactly. The stress spikes, your working memory gets completely overloaded, and you just freeze.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. It reminds me of when I tried to learn how to drive a manual transmission car.
Oh, that's a perfect example.
I mean, I watched all these videos on how the clutch connects to the engine block. I understood the friction zone conceptually, like I could draw it on a whiteboard.
You had the declarative knowledge.
Right. But the second I was at a red light on a hill with a car honking behind me, all that mechanical theory was utterly useless. I just stalled the car.
Because in that moment, you don't need facts. You need practical muscle memory reflexes. That's procedural memory.
So it's about reflexes, not facts.
Yes, and language operates the exact same way. It is a functional tool meant to be swung like a hammer. But Sophia has convinced herself it's an exam she has to pass perfectly.
She's grading herself in real time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When she approaches the cafe counter, she isn't thinking, I need to communicate that I want coffee. She is thinking, I need to construct a grammatically flawless sentence utilizing the correct tense, the proper prepositions, and native-level pronunciation.
Which is an impossible amount of mental processing to do in the span of, 3 seconds.
It's cognitive overload. I mean, human working memory, our mental RAM, if you will, can only hold so much information at once.
Right.
If 90% of her mental RAM is being consumed by anxiety and, grammar calculus, there is literally no processing power left to actually speak the words.
Wow. Grammar calculus, that is exactly what it feels like.
The cognitive load becomes so high that her brain simply shuts down the attempt as a protective measure, and she resorts to pointing silently. You just cannot study your way out of a procedural problem with more declarative facts.
So hitting the textbooks harder, memorizing 1,000 more flashcards, that isn't going to fix the paralysis.
Not at all.
Because a lack of data isn't the root issue here. The problem is how she's trying to access and deploy that data under pressure.
Yes, and that realization requires a fundamental shift in strategy. It's really the turning point in her journey. She recognizes that the academic approach is failing her in the real world, so she alters her environment and her inputs.
Yes, she makes a very conscious decision to practice for real life, not for the exam room.
Which changes everything.
It really does. And she doesn't do this by locking herself away for 6 hours a day to study. She integrates it into her routine in a very low-stakes, manageable way.
Right. She makes it part of her daily life.
Exactly. She starts putting on simple English podcasts while she is making breakfast. She exposes her brain to the natural daily rhythms of conversation. Phrases like, how was your day? Or, what are your plans today? Or, can I help you?
Very basic functional language.
Right. These aren't complex, multi-clause academic sentences. They are the foundational building blocks of everyday human interaction.
And notice the shift in the type of resources she's using.
Oh, yeah.
She moves away from abstract grammar manuals and focuses on situational context. She starts using books specifically designed for realistic dialogues, like short stories in English for beginners from Teach Yourself.
Yeah.
And another resource focused on learning vocabulary through stories.
Okay, so she's reading stories instead of grammar rules.
Yes. And this is a brilliant neurobiological hack.
How so? What's the hack?
Because the brain doesn't learn language effectively by assembling isolated words based on abstract mathematical rules.
Okay.
The brain learns through chunking within a narrative context. When you read a short story about someone navigating an airport or going grocery shopping, you aren't just learning the word for apple.
Right.
You are learning the entire predictable script of a grocery store interaction. You learn the phrases as single, pre-assembled units.
Oh, situational scripts. That completely changes the dynamic.
It really does.
Instead of building a sentence from scratch like Lego blocks while the cashier is staring at her, she just hands over the fully built Lego structure.
Yes, she is building a library of scripts for highly predictable environments. And to cement these scripts, she uses programs like Effortless English.
Practicing them out loud, right?
Exactly. Practicing these functional phrases out loud while she's cooking or walking around her neighborhood. She is actively bridging the gap from declarative knowledge to procedural muscle memory.
By physically speaking the words.
Right. By literally getting her mouth to form the words before she ever needs them in a high-pressure situation.
She is simulating the real world in a safe environment. She's practicing phrases like, could you help me? And it's nice to meet you.
Getting those reps in.
Yeah, exactly. But among all these everyday phrases, there is one specific sentence she rehearses that I find absolutely brilliant.
Oh, I know which one you're talking about.
Here's where it gets really interesting. She actively practices saying, I'm still learning English.
It's so smart.
Think about the psychology of that for a second. She isn't just learning how to ask for directions or buy groceries. She is actively rehearsing how to admit she isn't perfect.
Yeah.
It's like she is consciously building a vulnerability shield. By preemptively acknowledging out loud that she is a beginner, she entirely removes the unspoken pressure to perform flawlessly.
She just diffuses the bomb.
Exactly. She is giving herself permission to stumble right up front before the other person can even form a judgment.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the concept of a vulnerability shield is profoundly effective for managing cognitive load.
Okay, how does that work with cognitive load?
Well, think about what happens when you walk into an interaction and try to hide your lack of expertise.
Oh, I get so tense.
Right. Whether that's speaking a new language, starting a new corporate job, or trying a new sport. You are dedicating a massive portion of your brain power to maintaining an illusion of competence.
You're faking it till you make it, but the faking takes work.
Exactly. You are constantly monitoring yourself, scanning the other person's face, worrying if they've noticed your flaws.
It's exhausting. You're playing defense the whole time.
It completely drains your mental RAM. But by simply stating, I'm still learning, you instantly reclaim all of that mental energy.
Because the secret is out.
Right. You drop the heavy armor. You no longer have to worry if they think your grammar is poor because you just told them it might be.
That is so freeing.
This dramatically lowers the stakes, which keeps the nervous system calm, which in turn allows you to actually access the vocabulary you've studied.
She's completely dismantled the test environment.
She has. She has her pre-assembled tools, her scripts for ordering, for asking for help, for explaining she's a beginner. And because these tools are pre-assembled and the stakes are lowered, they don't require heavy mental lifting to deploy.
Okay, so she has the tools. She's rehearsing them in her kitchen. She's dropping her ego. But eventually, you have to take the bicycle out of the living room.
You do. You have to ride it.
You have to put the tires on the pavement and test the tools in the wild, where things are totally unpredictable and mistakes are absolutely guaranteed.
And it's crucial to acknowledge that this transition is messy.
It's not a movie montage.
Right. It's not a fairy tale where she listens to a podcast for a week and suddenly speaks with total fluency. The reality is that taking this into the real world is still incredibly uncomfortable at first.
I'm sure it is.
She still forgets words in the moment. She still stumbles over her pronunciation. The anxiety doesn't just vanish into thin air because she read a short story.
But her reaction to the discomfort has evolved, right?
Yeah.
Before, the mere threat of a mistake would paralyze her into silence. Now she accepts the mistakes as part of the process, and she pushes through the latency period.
That latency period is the graveyard of so many new skills.
What do you mean by graveyard?
Well, it's that frustrating gap where you are putting in the real-world practice, but your brain hasn't fully mapped the procedural memory yet.
So you feel like you're failing.
Exactly. You feel like you're failing. But neurobiologically, you are actively building the myelin sheath around those neural pathways. It requires time and repetition.
And she gives it that time. Slowly, the gears start to catch. Her listening comprehension improves because she's not panicking, her speaking gets a little smoother, and a baseline of functional confidence begins to grow.
It builds on itself.
Yeah. Which brings us to the ultimate behavioral experiment of her journey, the cafe visit.
The big moaning.
Right. She goes into a small, everyday cafe. Normally, this is the exact environment where she would freeze, point silently at the menu, and try to become invisible.
Right.
But this time, she takes a deep breath, and she executes a tiny, highly specific real-world test of her new scripts. She says, "Hi, can I get a latte, please?"
Just that.
That's it. 7 words. And the barista smiles warmly and replies, "Of course."
Success.
It sounds incredibly anticlimactic on the surface, just asking for a beverage. But when you consider the mental blockade she has been fighting for years, those 7 words represent a massive fundamental shift in her reality.
It's a massive victory because it successfully proves her new hypothesis.
Explain that. What hypothesis?
For years, her internal operating hypothesis was, I must be grammatically perfect in order to be understood and accepted.
Oh, right.
Her new hypothesis was, I just need to deploy simple tools. The barista's response, handing her the coffee with a smile, proved the new hypothesis correct.
The tool worked.
Exactly. And that creates a cascading effect.
Yeah.
Later that week, a coworker strikes up a conversation with her.
Okay. Higher stakes.
Right. But instead of her usual panicked one-word answers, Sophia actually responds. She uses her practice scripts. She asks questions in return. She smiles.
She's actually engaging.
She is actually present in the interaction rather than trapped in her own head trying to do grammar calculus.
And the coworker even points it out. They actually say, "Your English sounds much more confident now," which is, the ultimate validation.
The proof is in the pudding.
Sophia realizes the core truth of this entire deep dive. English, or any skill, really is not just a subject to be studied in a vacuum. It is a functional tool used to connect with people, to navigate the world, and to share ideas.
It's about connection, not perfection.
Exactly. So what does this all mean? When you zoom out and look at the trajectory, well, why did ordering a simple coffee feel like summiting Mount Everest for her?
Because it wasn't about the coffee.
Right. The latte was just a vehicle. It was about proving to herself unequivocally that human connection does not require perfection.
This raises an important question about how we fundamentally define success in our own lives and learning journeys.
Yeah, how do we define it?
Well, for a very long time, Sophia's definition of success was delivering a flawless, grammatically pristine monologue without a single mispronunciation or awkward pause.
Which is an insane standard to hold yourself to.
By that metric, she was failing every single day,
Mm-hmm.
which just reinforced her anxiety. But if we redefine success functionally as simply a successful exchange of ideas or intent, the entire game changes.
It's a pass-fail on intent, not grammar.
Exactly. Did she use advanced collegiate level vocabulary at the cafe? No. Did she use complex compound sentence structures? No.
Right.
Did she effectively convey her intent to the barista and receive the outcome she wanted? Yes. Mission accomplished. That is the true definition of success for any practical skill in the real world.
It is so incredibly liberating when you reframe it that way. And as we pull all these threads together for you, the listener, the core takeaways from Sophia's journey are really clear.
They are.
You absolutely do not need perfect skills to navigate daily life or to start making an impact. Simple, direct communication is remarkably powerful.
Less is more sometimes.
Yeah. And every single small attempt you make, even the ones that feel incredibly awkward, is actively building your procedural memory. You cannot think your way to confidence.
You have to do it.
You cannot read enough manuals to skip the uncomfortable part. Confidence comes solely from the messy, imperfect act of practicing in the real world. The ultimate advice we can extract from Sophia's story is clear.
Yeah.
Deploy your skills a little bit every day in real situations and stop fearing the mistakes.
Embrace them.
Yeah, the mistakes aren't roadblocks. They are the very paving stones of your progress.
I think this is the perfect moment to turn this lens directly onto you, the listener.
Yes, let's bring it home.
We spent this deep dive analyzing Sophia's mental blocks, but the architecture of that anxiety is universally human. So I challenge you to ask yourself, what is the English grammar in your life right now?
Oh, that's a great question.
What is the skill or project you are endlessly studying, researching, and preparing for, but are too terrified to actually execute? Are you reading your 10th book on entrepreneurship, but you haven't spoken to a single potential customer?
Ouch. That hits close to home for a lot of people, I bet.
Or are you watching hours of tutorials on watercolor painting, but your canvases are sitting blank in the corner?
The infinite preparation loop.
Exactly. Identify the area in your life where you are using preparation as a hiding place. Recognize where you are treating a functional tool, like an academic test.
Step out of the lab.
Right. And then figure out what your equivalent of ordering a latte looks like. What is the absolute smallest, lowest stakes, real-world test you can execute today to break the cycle of paralysis?
That is a brilliant challenge. Find your latte. Figure out what that tiny 7-word equivalent is for your goals. And as you go out there to order it, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, building on everything we've explored today.
Let's hear it.
We've established that the fundamental purpose of language, of art, of business, of almost any form of human expression is to connect with others.
Absolutely.
Yet we spend so much of our lives terrified that our flaws will alienate people. We are convinced that fumbling for a word or admitting we don't have all the answers or visibly struggling with a new skill will cause people to judge us and push us away.
We think they expect perfection.
But what if the exact opposite is true? What if the stumbles, the forgotten words, and the visible effort of trying to learn actually make us more relatable, endearing, and human to the people we are trying to connect with?
It's an interesting shift in perspective.
Think about your own reactions. When someone approaches you and vulnerably admits, "I'm still learning this, could you bear with me?" Your immediate instinct is rarely judgment.
Right. You don't instantly look down on them.
No, your instinct is empathy. It's to help them. It's to encourage them. The vulnerability of trying something new and being visibly imperfect at it actually draws people in. It drops their armor, too.
Because it gives them permission to be imperfect as well.
Exactly. So what if the mistakes aren't getting in the way of connection? What if those very mistakes and the courage it takes to make them out loud are actually the secret ingredient creating the deepest connections of all?
I love that.
It might be time to finally put down the bicycle manual, step outside into the real world, and risk scraping your knee. Because the ride is out there waiting for you, and nobody expects you to be perfect. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.